Well, after 9 cumulative hours of waiting in line, I was finally able to get my hands on a Switch too. So I suppose the question is, was it really worth 9 hours and $500-ish reduce? Well, for the tax write-offs, yes, but really the question is Mario Kart World worth it? Even if it was just the soundtrack, hell yes! Somehow Nintendo not only managed to cram hundreds of live-performed songs into the soundtrack, but there's so many remixes of tracks not only from older Mario Karts, but even other Mario games. And they're somehow all bangers. The gameplay is of course fun as well. The new jumping and wall riding, especially when I'm playing as Coin Coffer My Beloved, makes me feel like I'm playing Lucio Overwatch, except with none of the suffering. So honestly, as of writing this, Mario Kart World has been out for only 3 or so days, and the entire soundtrack isn't even on YouTube yet. But I've heard some insane remixes that we can talk about, and learned some cool things about reharm and arrangement in the process. So I guess let's just hop right into it. As mentioned, this game uniquely remixed a bunch of random songs from across the Marioverse. And speaking of parallel universes, one such remix is the Mario 64 file select theme. In case you're unfamiliar, let's take a listen to the original first. Just that classic, super nostalgic sound. The melody is rather simple, pretty much repeating that same little melodic figure in the first line, then keeping the same rhythmic structure but changing the notes ever so slightly in the second line. The harmony is similarly straightforward, with this simple repeating 1 major to 4 major. The second line plays with some weak subdominant movement before soundly landing back on R1. Everything is rather expected and very diatonic. It all remains in our key of G major, and the harmonic movement is rather weak. The chords don't have much pull and kind of lazily move between each other. But let's take a listen to a section from the Mario Kart World version. It's just so unbelievably gratuitous and unnecessary, but I love it so much. When I first heard this in the game, I genuinely had to pause because I was laughing too hard. So let's see what's happening here. The first section remains almost entirely diatonic, but we've done a really subtle reharm that adds so much movement. We now start on the 4 and then use the bass to walk down the scale to the 1 at the end of the phrase. The second line breaks our bass movement a bit, but we get this hybridized 5-7 and then the legendary Blackadder chord, functioning as our spicy sub 5 of 4, which then takes us into the 4 at the start of the next section. It sounds super complicated, but ultimately the effect is buttery smooth voice leading and such a powerful and interesting pull into the next section. And this upcoming section is hilarious. It's pretty much the just the two of us chord progression. If you know me at all, you know I absolutely adore unnecessary 5 of 4 reharms, and this one checks all of the boxes, especially with its preceding subdominant and the Blackadder afterwards. That's more or less everything I wanted to say about this one, but I think it's a really cool precedent that we haven't seen in Mario games outside of maybe like the Mario and Sonic Olympic series. We've really never seen consistently heavily reharmed tracks in any other Nintendo soundtrack. At least I think. I don't know, I never played like Elite Beat Agent, so you guys are gonna have to prove me wrong in the comments. But anyways, it only gets worse from here. Take a listen to the original Shroom Ridge from Mario Kart DS. bit of a bluesy bop. The melody is mostly diatonic to A-flat major except for these occasional bluesy C-flats. And the harmony is actually similar to File Select in that it hits the 1 to 4 chord progression, but now with some flat 6 and flat 7, colloquially and fittingly called the Mario resolution. So what does the remix do differently? Pretty much everything, actually. There's just so much to talk about here. First, the newly added intro is so interesting. The first 2 chords sound like spicy variations of our 5-7, which pull us into our 1 D-flat. But after we hear a bit more, that D-flat to E-flat to F movement actually sounds like the Mario resolution, meaning F minor or A-flat major is our real tonic and not D-flat major. This is so cool, and I don't say this lightly, but one of the most important concepts in music theory, retrospective analysis. Since music is a temporal art form, we have to analyze using the information we know at the given moment. When we hear chord 3, the music is ostensibly in D-flat major because this feels like home, and there isn't any information to tell us otherwise. But after a few more chords, we are slowly pulled into F minor / A-flat major land, which retroactively recontextualizes the earlier D-flat. And composers can utilize this immutable fact of how we listen to music to their advantage, which is what happens here. That cool gray area where the key center slowly shifts just feels so interesting. That E-flat to me just feels so bright on first pass until our ear latches onto the following F minor as our key center. But anyways, the fun doesn't stop there, because right after this we get this disgusting sequence of hybrid chords. I've talked about similar chords in my Dress to Impress video, but in short, hybrid chords are chords where the bass and upper structure aren't super closely related, resulting in this ambiguous kind of sound. And especially when the first one is non-diatonic and they step downwards chromatically into our D-flat, it's just nasty as hell. We'll talk about this more in a second, but first let's look at the rest of this page. We keep that same chord progression until that last line, where we get another blackadder that works with the nicer version of itself to pull us into that lovely flat 2, our A major. I mean, what is there to say? Just crazy reharms that on paper make sense, but are still so unexpected when you hear them. Alright, so let's go back to those hybrids. Typically, these kinds of hybrids function as dominant chords. If you spell them out from the root, it forms a sort of loose dominant 7 with a sus4 and a 9, which lends to their previously mentioned ambiguous sound. And typically, as dominant chords, they like to resolve downwards in fifths, or half steps, the latter of which we see here. But let's take a look at these same kinds of hybrids just doing whatever the hell they want. I suppose we should probably hear the original first. We actually don't even really need to talk about the original Dolphin Shoals, because what I actually want to look at is the newly added intro in the remix. They surprisingly did 2 remixes of Dolphin Shoals in the OST, a faster day version and a more chill night version. And yeah, the day version has the super funny Mario Kart lick. But I think low-key the night version is actually more interesting. so ridiculous. We have constant structure hybrids for literally the entirety of the intro. That same chord slowly climbs up in half steps until we arrive an entire tritone away. The construction of these hybrid chords is exactly the same as the one in the previous tune, except also adding the major 7, which translates to the 13 if you think of them as dominant chords built from the bass up. But it's so interesting because while we do typically feel these hybrids as dominant chords, going upwards in half steps kind of kills the dominant sound for me, and it really just feels like color and upwards movement. That is, until that last hybrid resolves down a fifth into our 1, our A flat. Another unbelievably clever but subtle example of retrospective analysis. All of our hybrids going forward sound like non-functional colors, but as soon as we land on that A flat in the start of the section, our previous hybrid feels like the funny version of our 5 chord. And we will actually still continue to see different usages of this exact hybrid. Honestly, if it didn't feel disingenuous and a bit reductive, I probably would have made the video title and thumbnail something like this, because they pretty much just spam these hybrids in literally every single song. It's a very jazz fusion sound, which makes a lot of sense of course, but I was finding it hilarious when I was transcribing and realized, oh wait, half of these chords are literally just C major over D? Okay. But let's take a quick break from hybrids to talk about today's sponsor, the Indie Film Music Contest. The Indie Film Music Contest is a competition that challenges composers to write scores for indie films. The contest is all about musical storytelling and as such is inclusive and beginner-friendly. The judges will be judging your submissions based on your musical ideas, creativity, and emotional impact, rather than technical prowess or fancy expensive gear. You'll be given the option to score one of 2 unreleased indie films. For copyright reasons, I can't show them on screen, but one of them is live action and the other is an animated short. Each is around 3 minutes long and includes sound effect tracks, giving you an opportunity to simulate a real-life scoring experience. And to celebrate the IFMC's 5th anniversary, you can send a second submission at no additional cost, allowing you to score both films. Entrants will also have the opportunity to get personal individual feedback from a panel of experienced judges in the film music industry, as well as see transparent evaluation criteria for their music. All participants will receive some cool discounts on scoring tools, including 25% off Sound Iron products and 50% off East West's Composer Cloud Plus. There's also some cool prizes, including a bunch of other industry-standard instrumental libraries. The deadline for submission is July 31st of this year. Register now and save 10% on the registration fee by using the code HIRA. Sign-up link is in the description. But anyways, let's take a more in-depth look at my favorite remix thus far of one of my favorite tunes from Mario Kart 8, Cloudtop Cruise. First, let's take a look at the first half of the original. The intro kind of has our Mario resolution with that B flat to C to D in the upper structure, but now we have all of this over a pedal point. The D holds in the bass, giving us this very dramatic and grounded sound in my opinion. After the intro, we have this driving rhythm with a simple D major harmony, but also this nice E flat to break it up, giving a bit of Phrygian flavor. In fact, this tune is actually quite tonally interesting. The intro starts in a kind of minor, then this Mixolydian flat 6 kind of sound, then we get a taste of Lydian with this bright G sharp in the melody, and then Phrygian with the E flat. It sounds like it's tonally all over the place, but this mild chaos feels so soaring and storm-like, which works so well for this track. But I'll save the more environmental musings for the Sky video. The point is, the melody weaves in and out of these small modal differences, and the harmony follows suit. We have a slight change again in the next line, a cute little 2/5 with this E minor and A, which puts us rather squarely in regular D major. And the following line is also interesting. We have this short walk down with the D to D over C, and then this E flat over F pulls us into that B flat. It's super cool. Even though the B flat is kind of just our flat 6, the previous chord feels so unexpected and pulls strongly enough that I almost hear the B flat as our new tonic. But then after that, it's kind of just a straight shot back to D, some functional chords, and then the Mario resolution. Honestly, this tune is already pretty cool, but the Mario Kart World reharms make it even wackier. Let's take a listen. The intro maintains the idea of the Mario resolution over the pedal point, but it kind of falls and rises, and then we have this backdoor 2-5 which pulls us into the one at the start of the next section. And this following section is so cool. It develops the original's kind of amorphous tonality by using funny upper structures over our A pedal point. The A major 7 feels like A major, the G over A feels like Mixolydian, the B over A feels Lydian, and the A augmented feels kind of whole tone-ish. It's just such an elegant reharm that retains the original's tonal intent. The following line is also so cool. We have this jazzier progression that pulls us into the 4, which then falls down a 5th into the flat 7. And then just a basic turnaround with the 3-6-2-5 kind of thing. The section after this is rather similar to stuff we've already seen, but notably our familiar F major 7 over G hybrid replaces our flat 6 and flat 7 of the Mario resolution, as it kind of sounds somewhere in between both. All things considered, it's a relatively tame reharm that, while noticeable, retains the harmonic skeleton of the original. The next part though, not so much. But first, the original. Pretty straightforward. This little bridge section starts on our B flat, our flat 6, a color chord that bridges our B flat and C chord, and then that B flat over C hybrid, which brings us upwards into our tonic D. Notable is this nice upwards movement of the bass from B flat up to D, which maintains a bit of momentum in this otherwise calmer section. Now the remix. Actually insane. This disco-y constant structure section uses our familiar F over G flat 7 hybrid and just moves it up and down, rising back up into our F over G here and falling down into it here. It's actually very similar to the Dolphin Shoals thing from earlier, but here that F over G remains very functional. It wants to resolve upwards to our A and creates so much tension, especially with those other intermittent approaches. And there's still more cool stuff, but let's take a look at the original one last time. This last section leads into this wonderful and unexpected interpolation of the Gusty Garden Galaxy theme. This transitional section rises upwards in a kind of loose Mario resolution, before modulating up a half step into E flat for our Gusty Garden Galaxy. It plays it pretty straight, but then afterwards, before the loop back to the beginning, we have this cool pedal point once more with the flat 2 and flat 3 in the upper structure to bring us tonally back to that Phrygian dominant-ish flavor. But alright, now let's hear how the remix does it. hybrids move upwards into the transition, which then continues to move upwards into that F7, which sets up the resolution into our new key of B flat. The Gusty Garden Galaxy section is similar to the original, but I do like the reharm of the second chord to A flat over B flat, just to spam that hybrid as much as possible. But then at the end of it, we get this interesting 2-5 that seems a bit unrelated to our key, but serves to cleverly voice lead us downwards into that B flat over C hybrid. And I love this hybrid. Generally, hybrids are a function of the bass note. Assuming we don't have an inversion, chords over C will function as some sort of C chord. But here it really does feel like two separate voices. We hear the B flat in the upper structure as our tonic chord, and the C in the bottom adds instability, but still works because the bass movement from the previous chord sets it up. And of course it doesn't stop there. We get this similar planing hybrid movement from earlier, and these last two chords are so subtly clever. The D over E of course maintains the same structure as our previous hybrids, but then the upper structure falls down a half step to C sharp, and then that C sharp over E sounds like a tension-y dominant chord, which wants to pull us back into A major for the loop. These last two chords really just feel like a funny 5-7 sus to 5-7 to 1. And then after this, the form loops and we get some solos. Honestly, I could go on and on and on, but at least for the scope of this video, that's it for now. I really only played the game for like 5 or so hours at this point, so I'm pretty sure there's so many other banger tracks we'll hear right after recording this, so I'll probably make a more organized part 2 at some point. But I was just really excited to talk about these tunes. In fact, I've probably spent more time listening to the soundtrack on the title screen than actually playing the game at this point. But now that the video's over, I'm gonna get back to grinding time trials with Coin Coffer, my beloved.
That's the cutest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.